We are already a month into 2025 and it is already shaping up to be a tumultuous year for watch enthusiasts. You've got social media hypes, you've got super big replicas and micro brands that vanish overnight that can lure even seasoned watch collectors into costly mistakes. So before you drop a fortune on the latest it watch or seemingly a sweet deal in 2025, I want you to watch this video from start to finish, because for today's video we're going to look at the 7 types of watches you should be staying as far away as possible from in 2025. So let's get started. Watch number 1 is usually that type of watch that gets the ball rolling in the first place. The one watch that gets you into the rabbit hole and start digging deeper into overhyped watches, and even worse, the one at bubble prices. For everyone new to this, you have to, look at it that way. A watch can be sold in more than just one way. It can be sold directly at an authorized dealer, AD for short, or through a so-called gray market dealer on the secondary market. Both ways are entirely legal, by the way. And with watches which experience a lot of hype around them, or watches that are, just very popular in general, their demand often exceeds their supply. So not everyone who wants to buy one at retail gets one at retail, because ADs get to pick and choose their customers at this point. That way their price spikes on the secondary market because they're, so hard to get. A really fantastic example for an overhyped watch at a very incredible bubble price would be the 5711 from Patek Philippe. Patek Philippe announced the discontinuation of the Nautilus 5711 in the early 2021. In January of that year, news broke that the long-standing and very highly sought after reference would be phased out of regular production. Patek later released a limited kind of like a farewell green dial version of that one. But yeah, that 5711 has been discontinued. Now, it all gained traction with the bubble prices and all of that in 2019, when it went from a secondary market price of, I think it was like about 35 to 40,000 on average, to 40 to 60,000, and continued to rise to an insane 100 to 130k in early 2021 amidst the discontinuation announcement. I mean, it still remains rather high, but has stabilized, if you can even call that this way, around the 100k as of now. But yeah, you can already tell how volatile those bubble prices can be, for good or for bad. So buying into the hype at its peak can mean overpaying by a wide margin, and then seeing values sometimes even crash later if you're in bad luck. But the fear of missing out on these watches is real. So make sure that whenever you decide to gamble on such a watch, that you are indeed aware of the fact that you are fully gambling with your money if you start getting into that game. Next is a type of watch that might not be on everyone's radar, but sure enough, it is something that, I still get asked about a lot too, and those are smartwatches. I use them too. If you want to get deeper into that, I have reviewed a smartwatch and given my opinion on it. I will link that video for you in the description box down below. And now, I don't want to say that you should avoid smartwatches altogether. This is not what this is going to be about, definitely not. But what you should do is avoid the ones with ending software support. Just, simple as that. Software updates are crucial to keeping the smartwatch, just functioning well. And if you buy a model nearing its end of life, where the brand no longer provides updates, you may be stuck with a device that is quickly becoming obsolete, which would be sad and bad and just not a great use of your money. So watch out for those like prior generation models which are being sold heavily discounted because of it, and confirm for yourself that the manufacturer will continue supporting the software and apps for a few more years at least. A good example for that would be the Apple Watch Series 3 and 4, which will be potentially out of major OS updates by 2025. So, right about now. All in all, look out for these like steep discounted smartwatches that are already, say, like 3 to 4 generations old with no clear promise of future updates, and stay away from those. Thanks to all the cookies and tracking on the internet, I'm sure that we've all had those ads on Facebook by now promoting some obscure watch micro brand that, according to them, provides this like once in a lifetime outstanding quality at an incredibly low price point. Those are the brands with virtually no track record, no customer service details, or just like, a bunch of poor reviews. So if you can't find any reliable information online or from, fellow watch collectors, proceed cautiously. A very good example are those like AliExpress rebranded dive watches with dozens of like near identical dive watches sold under different micro brand names, often with very minimal, if even they've got any quality control. Got like these inconsistent bezel alignments, unreliable movements, or just don't work at all. Got some popular like $99 Kickstarter deals that might fall into this category too. And then you have those brands popping up on crowdfunding sites every few months, which have those like AI generated photos and just like other renderings that you should also be very careful with. And obviously, I'm not saying that this goes for most micro brands, but I'm sure you know what type of micro brand I'm referring to. While many micro brands produce great watches at fair prices, some simply, just repackage very generic parts with like minimal quality control and effort and just hope for the best that anyone's going to buy that. Money spent on those watches can be better invested with a bit of patience and research. Next are vintage watches. And don't get me wrong, vintage watches can be great. I myself bought a Cartier from 1991 and I love it, but I made sure to know exactly what I had to do in case I run into trouble with a watch like that, because even though vintage can be sometimes significantly cheaper than current models, they can turn into a true nightmare down the road if you have to, keep investing into its repair. Vintage watches are kind of like old-timer cars in that sense. Not that I'm a car person, but I guess it's kind of very similar. You really have to be aware that for some, if not most of them, at a certain age, spare parts might no longer be available, as well as the watchmakers who can actually service them correctly. A cool but tricky watch, for example, would be the vintage Girard-Perregaux quartz from the 1970s. Very cool, very stunning watch, but some early quartz movements are obviously no longer produced, and replacement parts can be very hard to find or even are non-existent at this point, making any kind of repair a nightmare. And you could end up with a non-working watch you've paid a couple of $1,000s for. So if you want to be on the safe side, make sure you know exactly what you're getting yourself into and plan ahead for any future service costs. Right, next is something I am very torn on, because some of these fashion brand luxury watches are actually pretty nice, but then again some of them are just absolutely terrible, and it can be very tricky to tell them apart from each other if you're very new to this. So some fashion houses or brands, however you want to call them, release watches with high-end branding but relatively low quality movements or materials. You may be paying a premium for the logo but not for craftsmanship or any horological value to them. I immediately kind of have to think of those like Michael Kors or Armani Exchange, like special collections that they've got going on for like $500 to $600. I mean, design wise they sure take a lot of boxes for a lot of people, but it really isn't the best option if you want a truly good watch for that money. You're mostly paying for the fashion label. They often have minimal resale value at that point as well, and just very basic components that break very easily. My ex-boyfriend used to have one of those, and I remember that only like a couple of weeks after he got it, like this was like an Armani Exchange watch, I believe, he like randomly moved his arm, the clasp just opened out of nowhere, the watch fell off, broke apart, and then it was like €300 for just nothing, just down the drain. So just save yourself from that trouble. Right, number 6, we have a very highly debated category for that of watches, and for this I want to also hear your point of view in the comment section down below, so make sure to leave your comment. Of course, I am talking about Homage watches, but hear me out, there are Homage watches and there are Homage watches, so let me explain the difference between these two. There are these like very cheaply made watches, mostly sold online for that are very obviously made to look like an exact copy of another very popular watch, but there's really nothing behind that. No concept, no good quality, no craftsmanship. And if you want to watch a full review of such a watch, I recommend checking out my most recent video I did on Amazon watches. You'll see exactly what I mean after watching this. And well, then there are actual Homage watches. Those true Homage watches can be fun if it's clear that they're an intentional, very transparent nod to a classical design. Most of the time those watches come from the initial watch brand itself, the Black Bay 58 from Tudor referencing an older model, or you have the Vacheron Constantin 2022, which doesn't mean that they always have to be super expensive, but there is a line between an affordable watch brand trying to pay homage to a certain design school and those who are just very blatantly copying popular watches in the cheapest way possible. Lastly, we do have to talk about the elephant in the room, the replicas. Counterfeit watches are illegal, most of the time of poor quality, and often fail very quickly. They also have almost zero resale value and can land you in legal trouble or ethical trouble. There are also higher end replicas that are shockingly accurate and actually well made, I have to say, but still the ethical and legal dilemma obviously remains. I mean, ultimately, this is a very personal decision that everyone has to make for themselves. It seems that it's mostly, kind of this perfect storm of the fact that popular models don't have a big enough supply to fill everyone's demands, coupled with those bubble prices that I've mentioned in the beginning, that most people are simply not willing to pay because they're crazy high. And in that case, those high-end replicas, for a fraction of the price can be very alluring. But, it's both ethically and legally problematic. If you want to learn more about those high-end replicas, I recommend checking out my video where I compare a high-end replica to an original watch, which I will link for you in the description box down below. Like I said, at the end of the day, this is a very personal decision, but I think that you could spend those like $500 to $600 much better on, a legal watch that is authentic and not pretending to be something else instead of a high-end replica, and then you'll be much happier with that one, I promise. And here's all I have. There's no absolute list of don't buy watches that applies to every collector or enthusiast, but staying vigilant against like fakes or overly hyped or overpriced models, like poorly supported smartwatches, like unproven microbrands, and watches that offer no genuine craftsmanship or long-term support is just a smart way to act. Always do your research and consider the after sales and servicing quality and reality, especially so you're not making any super costly mistakes. And that is all I have for you today. If you have enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, and if you want to watch more videos like this, I recommend subscribing to my channel, and then I will see you in my next video. Bye.